What happens when Europeans arrive in America expecting chaos, excess, and disappointment, then return home asking why Britain cannot offer the same comfort, openness, and ambition? Was America misunderstood all along, or has Britain simply grown too comfortable defending what no longer works? After the World Cup, these visitors did not just bring home souvenirs. They carried back an uncomfortable question. What if the country they were taught to criticize is now the country Britain needs to learn from? America felt like home. Europeans arrived for the 2026 World Cup expecting football, packed stadiums, long journeys between host cities, and perhaps a few oversized meals that required a tactical formation of their own. What many were less prepared for was the way ordinary Americans made a foreign country feel surprisingly easy to enter. The tournament may have brought them across the Atlantic, but it was the welcome outside the stadiums that made the idea of returning home suddenly feel less exciting.
I bloody love driving in America. It's such a pleasure. It's such an absolute pleasure. We've had to change our car purely because we needed to, the old car had a service, but we've got this Jeep Wagoneer.
For years, much of the European conversation about America has been filtered through dramatic headlines, viral arguments, and carefully selected images of everything going wrong at once. From a distance, the United States can appear like a country permanently stuck in a breaking news banner. Then visitors land in Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, New York, or Los Angeles and discover something that television rarely captures. Strangers giving directions without acting inconvenienced, volunteers staying cheerful in the heat, restaurant staff asking genuine questions, and local families treating international supporters as guests rather than temporary traffic.
Four-wheeling through the muck of South Central Texas. Drew Haas invited two couples from Poland and France to his 30-acre spread.
That friendliness feels especially noticeable to people accustomed to more reserved public cultures. In London, commuters can share the same train carriage every morning for 3 years and still protect their silence like a family heirloom. In Paris, service is often professional, but rarely wrapped in the cheerful enthusiasm Americans attach to a sandwich order. In Berlin, directness is respected, efficiency comes first, and unnecessary conversation may be treated like an optional software update. None of these customs is unfriendly. They simply draw a firmer line between private life and public interaction.
As far as the Europeans who haven't come here, they've been told, Orange Man bad. America's really bad. It's everyone who has guns everywhere, they're shooting everyone, and everyone's mean. MAGA's full of hate. And then they come here, especially in the South, and they go, these people are the most amazing people in the world. They're really kind. Yeah.
America often erases that line before the visitor has even found the correct parking lot. A casual, "Where are you folks from?" can become restaurant advice, a warning about afternoon traffic, and 3 recommendations for barbecue before the drinks arrive. Someone wearing a European football shirt may suddenly find themselves in a conversation with a grandfather who remembers a match from 1994, a teenager comparing players, and a cashier insisting they visit a local diner that apparently serves pancakes the size of a steering wheel. The exchange costs nothing, yet it gives the journey warmth that no luxury hotel can manufacture. This is where Britain could learn something valuable. British politeness is famous, but it can sometimes operate behind glass, respectful, orderly, and carefully protected from excessive emotional exposure. American hospitality is more willing to step forward, introduce itself, pull up a chair, and ask whether everyone has eaten. It behaves less like formal etiquette and more like a neighbor who notices your moving truck and appears with cold drinks before learning your last name. After weeks of that treatment, the United States stops feeling like the frightening place described from afar. It begins to feel energetic, generous, funny, and deeply human. Europeans may still admire Britain's history, walkable towns, and familiar routines, yet America leaves them wondering whether daily life could be warmer, more open, and a little less afraid of talking to strangers.
One thing that I love about Americans is that they're so giving with compliments. You'll literally be walking the street and people are like, "You look gorgeous today." I feel like in the UK or Australia that just does not.
You get more for
Yeah, that's about it.
The World Cup gave them tickets to the games, but American hospitality gave them a reason to stay after the final whistle, built for big days. The first surprise was American warmth, but the next one was harder to ignore because it stretched from the stadium gates all the way to the horizon. The United States does not merely host a major event, it seems to unfold an entire continent, straighten the highways, switch on every giant screen, and ask whether anyone would like another parking lot. During the 2026 World Cup, the United States is scheduled to stage 78 of the tournament's 104 matches across 11 host areas, while Canada and Mexico each host 13. That figure explains why the American portion of the competition feels less like a visiting tournament and more like the country temporarily adding soccer to its national operating system. New York and New Jersey bring MetLife Stadium, which holds more than 82,000 spectators. Dallas offers AT&T Stadium, normally configured for around 80,000 and capable of expanding far beyond that for major events. Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium seats more than 70,000, yet its retractable roof makes the place resemble a climate-controlled spaceship that happens to sell nachos.
There's a roof above my head, there's air conditioning units, it's 35 degrees outside and you wouldn't even know in here. The roof even opens and closes. I feel like this should have been the venue for the World Cup final.
Britain certainly understands football crowds. Wembley holds 90,000 people, and grounds in Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, and London carry histories that American venues cannot reproduce with concrete and LED screens. The difference is not passion, because Britain has enough football passion to power the national grid during a penalty shootout. The contrast lies in how many American cities already possess enormous, modern venues supported by highways, airports, hotels, broadcast systems, hospitality zones, security plans, and commercial districts designed for crowds that arrive like weather fronts. That scale changes the mood of an international visitor. In parts of Europe, a major match can make the surrounding city feel as though every available train, hotel room, and pub table has been drafted into emergency service. London manages huge events impressively, but anyone leaving Wembley with tens of thousands of other supporters understands that the underground platform can quickly become a very polite, human lasagna. In America, congestion still exists and distances are undeniably greater, yet the system often has more physical space to absorb the crowd. The appeal goes deeper than wide roads and giant concourses. American event culture assumes the day begins long before kickoff. Parking areas become social spaces, food becomes part of the ritual, families arrive wearing matching jerseys, and strangers debate lineups beside coolers large enough to require their own zip code. The match remains the main attraction, but the hours surrounding it are treated as part of the ticket rather than dead time that must be endured. That may be the lesson Britain finds most tempting. A sporting event does not have to squeeze itself into the smallest possible window between the train arriving and the gates closing. It can spread out, breathe, and become a full day shared by families, visitors, and entire neighborhoods. For Europeans raised on stories of American disorder, seeing this machinery operate creates a strange kind of admiration. The country once portrayed as chaotic suddenly appears remarkably prepared when the crowd reaches 80,000 and everyone wants food, directions, restrooms, transport, and a decent view at the same time. America's great talent is making something enormous feel normal. After experiencing that confidence during the World Cup, returning to a cramped concourse and a sandwich priced like jewelry may feel surprisingly difficult. The road won. One of the most addictive parts of the American World Cup experience begins after the stadium lights disappear in the rearview mirror. European visitors may expect the long distances between host cities to feel exhausting, yet American road travel often turns the journey itself into part of the adventure. Somewhere between a giant gas station, an endless interstate, and a roadside diner serving breakfast at an hour when Britain has already closed the kitchen, the country quietly makes distance feel less like a burden and more like freedom.
As y'all can see, I'm back at Buss's. Got me a big barbecue Buss's sandwich, got me a big cup of Buss's juice. A lot of folks said I was saying it wrong, said it's Buckets.
The scale alone changes how people think. The United States interstate highway system stretches for roughly 48,800 miles, according to federal highway figures, while Britain has only around 2,300 miles of motorway. That comparison does not mean British roads are poorly designed. Britain is smaller, older, and far more densely settled. It does explain why traveling across America can feel like discovering a transport network built with the confidence of someone who looked at an entire continent and said, we should probably connect all of that. In Britain, A motorway stop is usually a practical interruption. Drivers pull into a service area, pay a slightly emotional price for coffee, visit the restroom, and return to the road before the parking limit starts sending threatening thoughts. American roadside culture feels more expansive. A large travel center may contain hot food, rows of drinks, clean restrooms, showers for truck drivers, shelves of local souvenirs, and enough snacks to support a minor expedition through Texas.
Why do our petrol stations in England not look like this? Look at this in the gas station. They've got everything. They've got Mountain Dew, Pepsi, whatever this is, Tropicana, Mountain Dew, Gatorade.
I have missed this feeling like rubbish off an 8-hour flight to America and coming to a gas station for snacks. Let me show you how good the gas stations are in America. I love them. So you've got all your coffee, fruit. Look at that bad boy. Soda machine, Slurpee machines, sandwiches, salads.
That abundance can look excessive until travelers understand what it provides: reassurance. When a journey lasts several hours, people worry less when fuel, food, bathrooms, and basic supplies remain easy to find. The road stops feeling hostile because there's usually another brightly lit place waiting ahead, often open late and staffed by someone who calls everyone Han without requiring an introduction. This convenience also reveals something deeper about American culture. The country treats movement as a form of independence. Driving is not always environmentally ideal, and car dependence creates real problems for people who cannot or do not want to drive. Still, the emotional appeal is powerful. A family can leave one city after breakfast, cross landscapes that seem to change genres every 2 hours, and reach another state before dinner. The highway becomes a moving front porch, complete with music, cold drinks, arguments over navigation, and one person insisting the gas tank can survive another 50 miles. For Europeans accustomed to borders, compact geography, and train timetables, this openness can become strangely irresistible. A trip from London to Manchester already feels substantial, yet in America that distance may be treated as the warm-up before lunch. What initially seems intimidating soon becomes part of the charm, because the country does not apologize for being enormous. It builds systems, businesses, and habits around that reality. Britain could learn from the way America makes long-distance travel feel supported rather than merely tolerated. Better rest facilities, longer opening hours, clearer roadside services, and more comfortable stopping points would make journeys less stressful without copying the United States entirely. The World Cup may bring people to specific cities, but America's highways teach them that the space between those cities matters too. Once travelers discover that the road can offer comfort, surprise, and a breakfast burrito the size of a forearm, returning to a lukewarm sandwich beside a crowded British motorway suddenly feels far less romantic. America chilled everything. After days spent moving between stadiums, restaurants, stores, hotels, and packed fan zones, many Europeans begin noticing that America has turned indoor comfort into something close to a public promise. Summer may be waiting outside with the manners of an open oven, but the moment those automatic doors slide apart, cold air arrives like a rescue team wearing matching uniforms. For British visitors, that simple blast of air conditioning can become one of the most quietly addictive parts of the entire World Cup trip. The difference is larger than it first appears. According to the US Energy Information Administration, nearly 9 in 10 American homes used air conditioning equipment in 2020, with systems especially common across the South and Sun Belt. Britain lives in a very different climate and built much of its housing long before mechanical cooling became normal, so residential air conditioning remains rare. During an ordinary London summer, that may seem perfectly reasonable. During a serious heat wave, however, a bedroom can begin storing warmth like it is saving it for retirement. American cities such as Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and Miami could not function at their current scale without dependable cooling. Air conditioning is therefore treated less like a luxury appliance and more like hidden infrastructure. It keeps hotels usable, restaurants comfortable, stores open, offices productive, and enormous indoor venues from becoming greenhouses filled with football shirts. Visitors may arrive expecting American excess, yet this particular form of excess starts feeling remarkably sensible after 10 minutes under Texas sun. What makes the experience so memorable is its consistency. In Britain, relief from heat can sometimes depend on finding a shaded table, opening a window that moves exactly no air, or standing near a supermarket refrigerator while pretending to compare yogurt. In the United States, cooling follows people through the day. The hotel lobby is cool, the rideshare vehicle is cool, the diner is cool, and even the gas station seems prepared to protect customers from melting beside the beef jerky. There are legitimate arguments about energy use, emissions, building efficiency, and the habit of cooling rooms until employees need sweaters in July. America occasionally adjusts the thermostat with the confidence of someone trying to refrigerate the entire county. Even so, the underlying principle is difficult to dismiss. Extreme heat should not simply be accepted as a character-building exercise. That lesson has become more important as European heat waves grow more frequent. London recorded temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius for the first time in 2022, while schools, homes, railways, and workplaces struggled because much of the country was designed to retain warmth rather than release it. Britain does not need to copy America by installing oversized systems everywhere, but better insulation, external shading, heat pumps, ventilation, and targeted cooling in public buildings could make hot weather safer and far less exhausting. This is why American air conditioning becomes more than a pleasant detail during the World Cup. It gives visitors a daily sense that the country expects life to continue, even when the weather becomes unreasonable. Matches remain exciting, restaurants remain busy, and families can recover between long afternoons outdoors without treating every ceiling fan like a religious object. The media often presents America through its loudest problems, but rarely pauses to admire the systems that quietly protect ordinary comfort. After several weeks of walking from summer heat into cool, bright buildings, Europeans may return home with souvenirs, football memories, and one extremely practical demand for Britain. Perhaps the nation famous for talking about the weather should finally learn how to defeat it indoors. Midnight still works. A World Cup match ends late. The crowd pours into the streets and European visitors prepare for the familiar race against closing time. Back home, that usually means checking the clock, lowering expectations, and accepting that dinner may soon become a packet of crisps beside a hotel kettle. Then America responds in its own wonderfully practical way. The lights are still on, the kitchen is still working, and somewhere nearby, a store is selling everything from hot coffee to phone chargers as though midnight were merely the afternoon wearing darker clothes. This late-night convenience becomes surprisingly addictive because it removes one of travel's most irritating pressures. Visitors no longer have to organize every basic need around a narrow window. A delayed train, an evening match, or a long drive does not automatically turn hunger into a scheduling emergency. The country leaves room for plans to go wrong, which may be one of the most realistic forms of hospitality ever invented. The numbers help explain why this feels so different. According to the National Association of Convenience Stores, the United States had more than 150,000 convenience stores in 2023, with roughly one location for every 2,200 residents. Britain also has a strong convenience sector, with around 50,000 local shops according to industry figures, yet opening hours vary widely, and late-night options outside central London, Manchester, or other major urban areas can thin out quickly. In American cities such as Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and Miami, all-night diners, gas stations, pharmacies, and grocery outlets are woven much more visibly into the landscape. That availability does something subtle to the mood of a place. A city feels less like it is shutting its doors and more like it is keeping a porch light on. The traveler who returns from a match at 11:30 p.m. can still find a proper meal, replace a forgotten toothbrush, buy medicine, or pick up enough snacks to turn the hotel room into a small diplomatic reception. America understands that human beings rarely become perfectly organized simply because the sun has gone down. Britain's earlier closing culture has reasonable roots, including labor costs, planning rules, neighborhood concerns, and different urban patterns. Nobody needs every village shop glowing at 3 in the morning like Times Square after too much coffee. Still, major transport hubs, event districts, and busy city centers could learn from the American habit of matching services to the hours when people actually need them. The real appeal is not endless shopping, it is freedom from the clock. Late opening hours allow spontaneity, absorb delays, and make visitors feel that the day has not been canceled because one match went into extra time. That sense of flexibility is especially powerful during a tournament when thousands of people are moving between unfamiliar places on unpredictable schedules. European media often presents American consumer culture as excessive, yet on the ground, much of that abundance feels less like greed and more like preparedness. The brightly lit gas station at midnight is not glamorous, but it quietly says, "You're not stranded yet." After several weeks in America, returning to a British town where the kitchen closed 9 minutes ago can feel oddly personal. The World Cup may finish at the final whistle, but in the United States, the evening usually refuses to clock out with it. America makes room. Some of America's most impressive World Cup moments happen without fireworks, marching bands, or a giant screen demanding everyone's attention. They appear in the extra-wide entrance beside a staircase, the accessible restroom near a crowded concourse, or the curb lowered so smoothly that most people walk across it without noticing. That quiet design choice says something important about the country. A public event should not become an obstacle course simply because someone moves through the world differently. For European visitors, the surprise is rarely that accessibility exists in America, because Britain and the European Union also have strong disability protections. What stands out is how visibly many American spaces have been shaped around it. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law in 1990, and its influence can be seen in ramps, elevators, parking spaces, doorway widths, seating areas, service counters, and routes through public buildings. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 1 in 4 American adults lives with some form of disability, which means accessible design is not a special favor for a tiny group. It is basic planning for millions of ordinary lives. That difference becomes especially clear during a tournament. A stadium may hold 70 or 80,000 people, yet the real test is whether a wheelchair user, an older supporter, or a family pushing a stroller can enter. Find a restroom, buy food, and reach a seat without needing the patience of someone assembling furniture without instructions. American venues are not flawless, and crowded events can still expose gaps, but the expectation that access should be built into the experience feels deeply rooted. Britain has made major progress under the Equality Act 2010, although many railway stations, historic buildings, and older urban spaces remain difficult to adapt. Network Rail has long acknowledged that a substantial share of Britain's stations still lack step-free access to every platform. In cities such as London, centuries-old infrastructure often means lifts appear only at selected stations, while the simple journey can require careful route planning before anyone has even chosen a scarf. The American advantage is partly historical. Many public buildings, shopping centers, airports, and stadiums were built or renovated during an era when wider corridors and modern access standards could be included from the beginning. Yet the deeper lesson is cultural. Space should serve people before it impresses architects. That principle feels generous because it removes the need to ask for special treatment. A ramp waiting beside the stairs does not make a speech about inclusion, it simply lets someone continue moving. An accessible parking space close to the entrance does not demand gratitude, it quietly shortens a difficult journey. Good design behaves like a thoughtful host who has already moved the chairs before the guests arrive. This may be one of the most meaningful things Britain could take from America after the World Cup. Accessibility works best when it stops looking like an exception and becomes part of the normal route everyone expects to find. The United States is often described through its size, speed, and spectacle, but its finest strength may be more human than that. America knows how to build something enormous while still remembering the person who needs a little more room. Perhaps the greatest lesson Europe carried home from America was not about stadiums, highways, or convenience, but about how a country makes ordinary people feel welcome inside something enormous. The World Cup revealed an America rarely captured by headlines. Generous, prepared, open-hearted, and proud of doing big things well. Which American quality should Britain learn from first? Share your answer below and subscribe to the channel for more honest stories that look beyond the headlines and discover the real America.